I was one of the first ones who got that message, because the former director sports chief, he was like, you're not performing on 70.3. You can't, like, we will not back you for a run at the Olympics. So now, like, you have to find a way to make it yourself.
Welcome to the One Moment Longer podcast presented by Any Question. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and this was a really delightful conversation with one of the all-time great athletes coming out of this last 5 years, the young Daniel Bækkegård. So much inspiration, so much learning in this one. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. All right, today I am joined by a Danish triathlon sensation, an Ironman Austrian winner on his debut, one of the youngest professional athletes to qualify for the Ironman World Championships, a multiple 70.3 winner and third place finisher at the Ironman 70.3 World Championships in St. George. Just with his remarkable professional career that began in 2019, he's quickly become one of the sport's rising stars. From his humble beginnings in a small Danish village, he's evolved into a dominant force in the triathlon world, claiming victory at the Ironman 70.3 European Championships with a truly impressive performance. And I've just admired from afar his progress and just been thrilled to watch him grow into an extraordinary athlete on the international stage. So it's an enormous honor and privilege to have him join me today. So welcome, and thanks for joining me on the One Moment Longer podcast. Daniel Bækkegård, how are you, mate?
Thanks a lot, Greg. I'm the one who's honored. I've listened a lot to your podcast, and it's just a privilege to be here.
Mate, well, it's like everything I said in the intro, mate. I've been watching, there's a group of you coming through that it's been just so incredible to watch you all lift the bar of the sport, beyond where it's ever been before. It truly is, with your swim, your bike, and your run. I've often said on this show, I'm glad I'm retired, because it's truly impressive to watch you guys go. You and Sam Long and Ben Canute, and of course you've got the Norwegians thrown in there, and it's really quite extraordinary as you all just keep pushing and pushing. And do you feel that? Do you feel like there's a group of you that are changing the way the sport is? Yeah,
it's a difficult question to be honest, because I think it's been a natural way of the sport for years. You were the part of it in your career when you changed the way of racing as well. If you look at it, you have certain areas of the sport where something else comes into play, and I think it's awesome to be in the sport right now. It's also tough because right now you can't afford to have any weakness. To be honest, you have to be there in all three disciplines and also the transitions. I think it's just a testament to the sport becoming more and more professional and bigger and bigger. The fact that there are more and more athletes who start to kind of do triathlon as a sport when they are 8 or 10 years old, which is fantastic. Of course, right now we have a bunch of guys, myself included, who just likes to challenge each other, and we race a lot. And I think that just creates a nice and healthy at times atmosphere of you just want to get better. You just want to develop as an athlete and as a person. And right now, of course, the Norwegians in the middle and long distance game is kind of the golden standard. And all of us, we just want to beat them, and that creates an awesome atmosphere.
There's you, and I've had Sam Laidlow on the show, and I'm loving this. You all are very determined, and you're prepared to speak your minds. You know what you want, and you're going after it. And the Norwegians are there leading the way right now, but boy, you're all chomping at their heels, and it's made for really entertaining racing for the rest of us that are big fans of the sport. I think it's just been truly impressive.
Yeah, I think it's of course Sam. He came kind of out of nowhere, even though he's probably been there for a bunch of years. But it's especially last year when we had the two World Championships. It was the first one in St. George. I actually felt Christian and Gustav especially, they were not that dominant. We could still, like, of course the media will paint a big picture of there's basically only 3 guys in the sport, and that's Jan and the Norwegians. But at the same time, we saw some lack in the bike performance of Christian. We had a big group riding away. And to be honest, when I started the run, I thought like, okay, I'm going to be a world champion today.
Wow.
Then I did 100 meters of the run, and I felt like, that's maybe not today. That's going to happen. So,
I love it. That's awesome.
But what I wanted to say was the fact that we did the race, and I felt like in that lead group we had that kind of, I wouldn't call it anger, but it was kind of, we were all driven to, we all had the same drive to just, we wanted to win, all of us. And we especially wanted to win against the Norwegians. You know, I know Christian and Gustav, they feel the same way when they race anybody else. So I think it's nice because we can also, like, we are friends on the side of racing. So that whole atmosphere is just so cool to be a part of, and I think it's a way of growing the sport as more spectacular friendly, and especially also like the level will just increase and increase.
Oh, well, we're seeing it, mate. But listen, you jumped on here. We were just chatting pre-show. You've jumped straight off the bike. You had a massive Zwift workout. You've jumped straight onto this show. Where are you and what time is it? Where are you in the world?
I'm back home in Denmark right now, and it's 7 in the evening. I just finished off a solid training day, so there's not really a better way to finish than with a podcast.
When you say solid training day, give us a recap. What did you get up to today?
Today was kind of a typical Tuesday at home, where in the morning we have a smaller group who, we all have like tempo stuff in the morning. So I did 3 times 5Ks at around 3:15 pace. And then we had like a recovery, technical work, kind of swim afterwards, 4K, 1 hour. Then I had a massage and some chiropractor stuff. I had some sponsor, what's it called? Pictures and, whatever.
Obligations.
Media stuff I had to do. And then, jumped on the Zwift for 2 hours with some, it was like 1 hour and 20 normal steady ride. And then I did a kind of a little bit of a heat session.
Everybody listening to that, let's recap that. Tempo run in the morning, 3 by 5K at 3:15K pace for the US in miles. That's let me think if I can get that right. It's about 5:15 mile pace. Insane. Then you've gone and done a 4K swim, which I know it was technical, but that's actually really hard when you don't have legs. And then you've spent the afternoon doing chiropractic and massage and sponsorship obligations. Finished that with a 2-hour bike ride with an hour of it tempo, and now you're sitting on doing a podcast with me. My goodness, mate. It's that's what it takes. I think, for people listening, there's often a lot of young athletes that listen, and when you hear that, and this is just a normal day, people. We're just talking normality, and I just think it's fantastic to hear it. So thanks for sharing it, mate. I appreciate that. Absolutely extraordinary. How's the pre-season going, and your training and racing gone so far this year?
It's been I'd recap it for last year as well as a huge work in progress. I've learned tons of stuff, and I still do on a daily basis. So it was like I finished my season in Israel at the Ironman, getting my teeth kicked in by Patrick Lang on the run.
Hang on. Before you put yourself down, that to me that was an extraordinary performance. I mean, yes.
Yeah, I'm happy about it.
Patrick dropped a 2:30 run. You went a 2:37, mind you, for a 7:43 total Ironman. I mean, I don't know. Yes, Patrick had an incredible race. I'll give you that. But
I think I must be the only guy who comes off the bike with a 5-minute lead, runs sub 2:40, and then still comes second.
Seriously. Oh my goodness. I mean,
that was just, I think also the course was not that fast either. I think what Patrick did there was like, that's why he's a multiple world champion. I have huge respect for that performance he did there.
Where did he catch you? And did you ever feel like, when did you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not going to win? Because I assume you felt like you were going to win for a majority of that marathon.
It's difficult because I'm not that, I can't remember how many Ironmans. I think it's 4 or so I've done in total. So I'm quite new to the game still. And it is just a different game than the 70.3 in terms of pacing, because it's like a 70.3 or PTO race. It's like, it's 1 hour maximum, like all out effort you have to do for the half Ironman. And that's, I don't know, for me, it's kind of easy to wrap your head around, because it's just all out for an hour. Of course, you can burn out in the last part, but in an Ironman on a marathon, it's just a whole other game. The fact that it's supposed to feel easy in the beginning, it's just completely weird. And I did the math. I was like, okay, I was aiming to do 3:45 pace basically the whole way through, because I felt like in the lead up, I'd done some pretty nice run sessions. You can ask Sebi about that in Girona. So I thought like I was in decent run shape. Ran out there and I was like, okay, this after 10Ks, I was like, okay, I was on pace and it felt quite easy. So I did the math. That would be like ballpark 2:37. And then I thought, okay, he had to do 2:32 then to catch me. That's not going to happen. Nobody ever run faster than 2:34 or whatever.
2:35. Ben Hoffman wasn't in Florida or something, or do we have quicker? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I at kilometer 33, that then happens. He comes past me. And I know that he was searching. I didn't lose my head at that point, because I was like, I felt like at that point I was running the fastest I possibly could, keeping in mind that I had to run 9 additional kilometers. So 3:45 was like, that's the pace I can keep. And it felt like he surged through past me, and he got like 200 meters. And those 200 meters, they kind of stuck for, I don't know, it felt like 5 kilometers or so. And I know he also said afterwards that he felt like I was gaining on him again. So I know he was also like, he was feeling it. And then he pulled a bit away, like he took 90 seconds or whatever in the last couple of kilometers. But I never really stopped believing that I could actually win, because I also knew that he burned
a lot of matches.
Couple of maybe the whole like basket to do that run effort he did. So I never stopped believing, but there comes a time where it's like you just have to get to the finish line.
It was an incredible race, mate. Incredible race.
Yeah, it was a nice way also to finish off the season. Even though it felt like, I started the season in Dubai in March, so racing the last race in November, it was also it was a long season. I think basically because we had the World Championships in May already in St. George, which meant that we had to do like pretty nasty sessions already in like early February. And again, that's just the thing we have to get accustomed to in the sport, because, there's more high profile races. We have the PTO Ibiza coming up. And you just have to be kind of fit all year round if you're not like aiming for just like doing kind of the old school way, Mark Allen kind of type, where you could be completely off for the whole season and then just go win Hawaii. We can't really do that anymore, and I think that's actually pretty cool. Kind of a World Cup vibe as you had.
How do you plan your season now? Like, what is it for you? Like, I mean, Kona's obviously a pretty big draw card, although it's not on the table for you this year. You'll be in Nice. But how do you decide when you sit down, with your team? How do you map out your preseason racing, your focus for the year? What is it for you?
It didn't take a lot of thought process because it's just like, where's the best going to be? There's going to be the PTO races, hopefully, Roth and Nice.
Wow. So it's just simply for you, it's racing the best. Find the best and race them often. I love that.
Because at the same time, I bet that was what you loved as well, following the World Cup series, and you have that on short distance. We've never had that on middle distance. I never did World Cups and stuff. I really wish that I had permission to do it, because I love the fact that you go out, not only the racing, but also the camaraderie, because I can, the sports, what's it called? Like sports manager in the Danish Federation is Rasmus Henning.
Oh, yeah.
Whom you also raced a
I've
bunch
raced
of
many
times.
against Rasmus, yeah.
Exactly. And he always says like the greatest thing he got from racing was that kind of, I know it's rivalry, but also camaraderie you get with the people you race, and you never had that on long distance or middle distance, because it's just never been like you meet each other once, maybe twice a year, and of course you're not going to be friends in that way.
No. So was there a reason you never raced the ITU? I mean, with your, and I mean, we'll get into your background in a little bit, but your swim background at least gets you in the front pack. I mean, you can obviously bike and run. You're a capable athlete with tremendous discipline and everything else. Is there a reason?
I've become that, but I wasn't when I had the chance to do the ITU.
Gotcha.
I think actually I was, I've of course asked myself a bunch of questions over the years, because I've been massively angry at the federation, and I think I was kind of robbed from actually, racing Olympic distance and stuff. I've never done an Olympic distance.
Get out. Wow.
And, because Denmark is a small country, we've only had one guy who could actually make it on the biggest scene, and therefore all the funds would go to him, rightfully so, because he was like top 10 in the world. But it also leaves like the rest of us out in the dark, because like it's difficult to fund. You need like, what is it, $30,000 or whatever to cover a year of racing on like on the World Cup circuit, and you also have to have a certain level, skill level and performance level. You have to be up there all the time to actually like get the points you need to race the big races, and to get to the Olympics, which that's what it's all ends out, racing the Olympics, because that's the biggest stage in the short distance sport. And I was a part of a smaller group we had the chance to get there. I just I wasn't good enough, and also when I had the chance, I blew it completely. And that was not only in the races, it was more like in the preparation of the races. Like years ago, I would say, I don't know how to form it, but I didn't like the federation. I didn't like the choices. But now it's more like it was probably my own fault. I did have the chances and I just didn't take it.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? I mean, I think there's a lot of federations that are going to have to be looking at how the Norwegians are running their program by almost allowing the athletes to have a little bit more choice, and the federation stepping back a little bit. And Gustav and Christian and others are racing Super League one week, 70.3 another week, Olympics, Ironman 70.3. And they're looking at the sport as one, rather than, I feel like all the federations with all the polo shirts out there, which is, we have more administrators and coaches than we do athletes, it seems, in a lot of these federations, not to get too political, but it does tend to have shifted that way a little bit. And it's like, hang on, let's just get out of the way and let these guys race, and let them race in the full spectrum of things, from Macca's Super Sprint Series to, all the way to PTO to Ironman, and do the full spectrum. And let's see what dishes out. I feel like we've made the friction to start any of these events, to get on to start, it's just so many hurdles. I don't know. I feel for a lot of the young guys like yourself that are like, well, I just want to race, I was one of the first ones who got that message, because the former director sportif, he was like, you're not performing on 70.3. You can't, we'll not back you for a run at the Olympics. So now, you have to find a way to make it yourself. And at first I took it very personal, because I was, it's tough when you're 18 years old and you feel like it's your whole identity, it's your whole purpose of life, that is to go to the Olympics. And then get the message you're not good enough to go there. Of course, it's tough, but I can also see now that he did it for the greater good, because he could see that I had some attributes that would not fit the kind of racing in sprints, but more so at the 70.3, maybe Ironman distance. And that is kind of the same thought process as you talked about, the fact that you shouldn't just be everybody have to do this. Everybody have to do the sprint, or everybody have to go through the program. Somebody can also say even though I'm 21 years old, I'm still going to focus on Ironman racing and be damn good at it. Because you can see now that's what, especially me and Magnus are doing here in Denmark, is even though we are quite young, both of us, we focus full on the 70.3 and Ironman racing. And I think it's a better way of maybe doing it, because then you specialized in one area and you feel like, of course, I've gotten some confidence in getting some solid results, and that also breeds more eagerness or whatever to do better and be more professional and make smart choices and everything. So that's kind of a good spiral. You just need time to kind of build that culture in the federation and in the country. Well, I think one of the great things you've said is, that you love to race, you love to race often, you love to race the best. And I think so long as you can keep doing that as you do the longer things, I think we've often seen a lot of the long course athletes, pull back and, do one race here or there, and it's really a long time apart. And I feel like they're missing what you get out of racing. I think you can train a lot. I think it's good. You need to train, you need to get fit, but there's nothing better than a race. And even a bad race, there's the learnings from a bad race still outdo a great training day for the most part. I still think getting out there and racing often is just tremendous, and you're doing that. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you're completely right there.
Yeah.
And the fact that now when we have the carbon shoes, it's the run is also is always the thing that takes the most out of your legs and your body. But right now we have the equipment, so we can actually race more because we can recover quicker.
Well said. That's so true. Yeah.
So I think in general, you have to. That's kind of my mission this year, is to learn how to race, and I can learn how to race when I'm only training. So I have to race races as well. Of course, you still have to make smart choices.
No. And look, and the way you do races and everything else. Earlier this year, you raced Clash Miami, and then you followed it up with 70.3 Lanzarote the next week. How was that for preseason races?
It was a solid slap to the face, results-wise. I think it was great to get out and do some racing, as you said, because it's I just missed it. Even though it's only 4 months, it still feels like a lifetime when you get out and do the first race of the season.
Yeah.
And to come back to your question before, my prep for the season or my preseason training have been so and so. I've had some problems with my back last year. I wanted to fix, and that's taking a lot of energy, and therefore I had to take kind of a step back from training and start to implement some other stuff, strength training and so on. So I knew I had some decent shape, but it's not like I've banged 4 months of solid base training as I normally would when I would start the season. But I can see now it was a great investment because, as you said, what you get in racing it's so good for if you are able to like recover and take it in for as stimuli on the body. It's like you can't do anything that's better, I think, because you need that kind of race speed and also the quick reactions you have to make, like the decision, the starts, the way you feel the lactic acid and everything. It's just you have to do it before the big races comes.
Just managing the sympathetic nervous system, the flight or flight, being on a start line, controlling your breathing, what words are going through your head, all of that. It's hard to get that from training. The mental and emotional that you get with a helicopter flying overhead, with camera crews around, with them playing anthems, whatever it is. Very hard to simulate that in training. And when I look at your results, I want to say at the start of this year, the 3rd and the 5th, I always looked at preseason that if I got a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, that to me was the golden, that was where I wanted to be. I actually got more nervous about winning in March and April than I did excited, because it meant generally personally my focus would be sort of August, September, October. And if I'm crushing March, April, I'd always be a little bit nervous. So I think, this is my personal feedback for you, I think a 3rd and a 5th in solid fields to start the year and you're well within the race, I think it's a nice place to be honest. I think that's a perfect place to be. I know we love to win, but honestly, for preseason, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think when I look back at it now, I'm really happy for it, because the worst thing in the world that could happen would be that I would go to Lanzarote especially and win, and then feel like, okay, everything is fine. We just keep doing what we're doing. Because I seriously, I got a slap in the face, and it was very good to see. Like, we have the hardcore numbers that tells me I'm just not good enough right now.
But didn't you lose your bag and everything? Didn't you lose your bag and all your gear before that race?
Yeah, but there was some stress, but that's a part of being an athlete.
True.
It was especially the thing, like mid-race, seeing the numbers. Okay, we have to up the game, and that was, I think, right now that was the best thing that could happen, because it also motivational wise. It's so good. And I wake up every morning and feel like, okay, I have to get to work. I'm not there yet, but I will be. There was a smaller meaning behind the races I also did, because I looked at the calendar and we have to do the PTO US and the PTO Asia, which is kind of a change in time zones within 2 weeks. And I really wanted to learn, like, what can I learn right now in terms of the traveling between and the recovering between the events.
Well done.
Because I really want to be on my A game there. I learned a lot from traveling and also recovering in that kind of week in between races. So I think it was money well spent and time well spent, no doubt.
I love that foresight. I love that you're looking at that and dealing with jet lag and how are you going to manage that. And, there's a lot of science about how to manage jet lag. Did you say forgive me, the US PTO is the week before or 2 weeks before Singapore?
Yeah, 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay, so I will tell you that I think always flying east from the US, you tend to feel pretty good going that way.
I hope so.
I don't know how long you have to have been in the US, but I've always found going from the US to China or Australia or Asia or whatever, I've always done pretty well that way. I've always had it a little bit harder when I've come from Japan to Florida or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, I feel half asleep. So maybe that's in your favor. Yeah. But I'm love that you're at least looking into it. I think that's really cool. A mini break to tell you about Any Question, the place where you can go ask the world's greatest experts questions, listen to all of their answers that are already there. So right now we have over 1,000 world-leading experts and over 75,000 answers. And it's all in a library that you can go search and discover some great content and some amazing learning. It's all free. Go check it out. You can go to anyquestion.com/Greg Bennett. That's anyquestion.com/Greg Bennett. Or download it directly on your iOS or Android. And it's all completely free. Hey, listen, we've spent a good half hour of this show just talking about your preseason, where you're at and everything, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But I actually want to just dive into a little bit about who you are and your background. And, you know, I like to ask guests to rewind the clock and just tell me about your journey to here. You know, when did your passion for endurance sports start? How old were you?
Oh, my passion for endurance sport, that was in year 2000. And I get chills right now just thinking of it.
Hang on, you're only 26. You're only 3 or 4 years old.
I was, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's because I've just been told that story a lot of times, and I've seen the clip. But my granddad and we watched a lot of sports together. You know, I always loved sport. We were sitting there watching the Sydney games, the 400 freestyle final, and when Ian Thorpe were called, and the crowd just went nuts. I think that's it's one of the most underrated times in the history of the sport, or moments in the history of maybe any sport. You have that young kid who have a whole country at the Olympics on his shoulders, and before the biggest event, and he goes out and smashes it completely. I think that's one of the most beautiful things that ever happened in the sport of swimming, at least. And from that day on, it was just like I had to watch sport all the time. I would prefer if it was cycling or swimming, but yeah, to be honest, I didn't really care what it was. But you know, from that kind of time, it was just like Tour de France, the classics. I've always watched it, and I love every second of it because it just tells its own story. And I started swimming, was a part of a small group of guys who grew up together, and turned out that 3 of them were probably the biggest talents in Danish swimming ever. I was not one of them, so I was always the slow guy on the relays who had to try to bring it home. So I think in total we won 23 or so gold medals at the Danish championships. And I was always the last one. We always started out with the fastest, and then I had to bring it home. So it's of course it's nice memories, but it also kind of made me hate swimming.
Yeah,
and
very stressful. Very stressful. Oh my goodness,
it was so much stress.
Oh my gosh, you poor thing. Oh my God, don't let us down. We've given it to you. Don't screw it up every time. Oh
exactly. And I have screwed it up, and it was a really tough environment to grow up in, but as well, it's what formed me as an athlete and as a person. And I think that's, my former swim coach. He's one of the guys I look up to now. And if I ever have a question about anything, it's him I go to about swimming. A lot of stuff is like he taught me how to train and how to be dedicated. I didn't understand swimming at all. I can see that now. There's so many things where I ask the guys underwater work off the walls, what do you think of when you do it? Because I'm just not good at it. I don't understand what I do wrong. And they all looked at me weird and was like, "Will you just kick?" But obviously, if it was just kicking, then I would be good at it. So
there's more to it than that. Some of you are just talents. Exactly. The problem with talent, they don't know how to teach, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that was also when I found out I was definitely not a talent. And then, long story short, I broke my arm, and I playing dodgeball, kind of weird. And then, I started cycling on a stationary bike and also running as rehab, just kind of still training a bit, because like all other athletes, nobody can be around me when I'm not training. So that was kind of just blowing off some steam. And then I got a race bike, and I went out on the bike ride with one of the guys from the local triathlon club. And it was my first ride with that guy was like complete eye opener. The fact that you can go out and train with your best buddies and actually have a chat at the same time. It was not like face down in the pool, staring at the black line and just basically racing every session you did, because that was what I did at that point. Now we just had a good time, and we saw some nature of, when you've lived in the same area for 10 years, but 3 kilometers down the road, you've never seen that place before. And that's just what cycling and running can do. The fact that you go out and you explore the nature. And that's, some of the stuff I love the most, the stuff I can actually do now, traveling to places and see places, ways other people normally don't see. And that's also what I want to aspire all other people to do, just go out and ride. I've never met a person who started riding a bike and like hated it.
It probably depends on where you live, but you're right. I agree with you. It's like getting out there in the nature. How old were you when you first started, getting on the bike?
That was around, like 16, 17 years old.
So you'd been a fan of watching the sport, but that was the first time you actually went and got yourself a bike and sort of got into it? Yeah.
But again, watching the sport, it was only Hawaii. I watched the Maca Crowe era kind of, and I thought it was a great sport, but I never really, thought about switching before I actually did.
Yeah. And so when you got your bike then, so when you'd broken your arm and you started running, still was there any inclination to go to triathlon, or was it just sort of rehabbing, getting ready to go back to swimming?
I still went and did a full year of swimming afterwards. But it was like after half a year, I actually trained very well, but I just, it's in that age where you just grow a lot. The muscles gets bigger, and that kind of swimmer body comes forward, and mine didn't really. So I needed a change. And luckily for me, that year my swim coach actually did an Ironman in Austria, in Klagenfurt. Yeah, we talked about the fact that if I could do the Ironman 50% faster than he did, then he would give me a trip to a local steakhouse, a dinner there. So fast forward, I kind of did.
Yeah, you smashed it. So when was it that performance? Like I'm always curious as to, as part of your journey when you kind of you've been swimming, you broke your arm, you started biking and running, you've always had a love for sport and all of that. But when you started getting into the triathlon world, was there a moment where you said, this is where I belong, and I may not have been the most talented in my swim team, being the fourth guy on the relay kind of thing, but I've got some ability here in the world of triathlon? I
think it's multiple moments, but the two moments that stands out is I went to like a federation get together where you swim an 800 meter and you run a 5,000 meter. Mm-hmm. And that's just to be on the national team basically. And I hadn't done any races at that point. I just started run training and I went there, and the first day I did the 800 meter and was clearly the fastest. And then the day after we did the 5,000 meter, and I ran like 17 flat or so, way better than what I expected. I thought like if I did below 20 minutes, then I would be happy. So I clearly had no idea what I did, not what I was doing. And then the race, the heat after, that was like the fast heat. And there was this guy who, I noticed the day before that he was not the greatest swimmer. I think he swam like close to 1 minute slower than me on the 800, but he ran 14:20 or so. And I've never watched a lot of athletics, and it's not a part of the school system to do track and field or whatever here in Denmark. So 1420 is like out of this world.
Well, it is out of this world, even if you do watch athletics. It's still phenomenal.
it is pretty fast.
Yeah.
And the way he ran it, the technique and stuff, it was just, I kind of fell in love. I remember that. And then 20 minutes after, it was, the hype kind of settled down, and he came over to me and just said, "Oh, nice swim yesterday. It was awesome to see. I wish I had some of your technique and easy glide in the water." And I remember I was just I didn't know what to say. I was completely starstruck because you had this Hercules kind of type who just ran like faster than anything I've seen before, and he comes to me and asks for advice. I was completely
awesome.
I was not a part. I was not used to that kind of culture from the swim world.
Yeah,
that was the moment where I felt like my type of human was accepted. That was where I belonged.
I love that. What a great story.
And I think afterwards he became, and now he's one of my best friends. And I think it's just fun.
That's so cool.
How you can have two sports that is just completely different in that way.
And you just both admire and respect each other because of what you can do exceptionally well. I think that's a really cool story. And then from that, that's obviously still fairly on in that. Was there a point where, you're like, okay, I'm going to become a professional athlete. I'm going to go all in here. Was that after your conversation, after the coach told you about the Olympics, or when did you decide, okay, I'm going to go all in?
There was a period of like 3 years where I thought I was going like all in. I heard that, I was going to, in this kind of smaller group where they had to select a couple of guys to go for the Olympics. And I was a part of that group. And I thought I was going, I did the all in, relocated, moved to Odense where I live now, because we had the national team training center here. And that was just what I had to do to make it to the Olympics. And I thought I was going all in. Everything was great. I measured the highest VO2 max ever in Denmark, and all training sessions, I felt like I brought that kind of racing at every training session almost to triathlon, because that was what I was used to in swimming. And of course, that's the one thing I regret the most, because I was nobody wanted to train with me because I never stuck to the program, and I was just there at every session just to basically win. And for me, winning, that was only by being the first all the time, like smashing myself completely. And I thought that was the way of going all in. Then I had 2 years where I just I DNF'd a bunch of races because of asthma, and I hated going to competitions because I kind of knew that I would fail. I didn't understand what I did wrong because I was still smashing it in every workout, and I did a good job in my own head. Of course, I wasn't, because I think basically I was just not asking myself the right questions, or I was not honest to myself about what was going on. So I felt like I was all in, and I did the sacrifices. I blamed the everybody else for not doing the right races, not doing the right training. It was never me. I never pointed fingers inwards. Yeah, I was called up to the principal's office, and he told me that I was kicked off the national team because of lack of results. And that was just a huge kick to the head. Because, in my mind, I knew that I hadn't done a lot of good results, but at the same time, I felt like I still have what it takes. I still have a high VO2 max. I just haven't showed it yet, and that's because of wrong training. Well, maybe not. Maybe the training was right. I was just doing it wrong.
There's a couple of things that I take from all of that. Well, first and foremost, I love the competitive mindset, and it's just a matter of having a good team around you to channel that. You know, I get excited when I hear the way you talk, like, I want to win everything. And it's like, okay, we need somebody, a great coach knows how to pull that person back, right? It's like a great coach shouldn't be a motivator. A great coach that has to motivate has the wrong athletes. An athlete should be well and truly motivated and wants to win everything they do. And it's a matter of a great coach is pulling that person back all the time. And I do think you are lacking some guidance on how to train, obviously. But I do love, personally, I would have been looking at that going, I want to work with that kid. I want the one that, like, I know what I can do with that guy. I just got to hold him back and temper him and let him loose when the big day comes around. So I think that's really cool. I also have to ask, what is your VO2 max? You've mentioned that it was big.
It was like 92 or 93 or something.
Get
like
out
that.
Of town.
So
my goodness.
7.2 liters. But then again, I'm not 100% sure in the way that was measured. And that's for you guys out there. Seriously, when people post like insane VO2 max numbers, you always have to be a critic to that.
Yeah. It's
like,
still look at the results
so
on the finishing line. It doesn't matter. It's one of 1,000 variables, everybody. Look, it is an indicator. I've said, look, it's one of those ones that if an athlete said, you know, when I was coaching, if an athlete came to me and they said, look, I have a VO2 of 60, we might reframe what the outcome goals might be in the destination. Like it does matter to a point but honestly, once you're sort of that 80 plus group, it's really, there's so many other things that happen. But that's extraordinary.
Yeah, exactly.
But did you end up working with, you mentioned earlier, I don't know if you'd said it in jest, you know, with a sports psychologist. Do you work with anybody?
Yeah, so that was the period of time where I decided to go all in because I was kicked off the national team, and after that I started working with a psychiatrist, and that changed my world completely. Because all of a sudden I started asking myself the right questions, and you know, my coach was really hands-on in terms of he didn't want to let me go. That was pretty clear, because he saw all the potential I had. I just had to learn how to understand what, like, the things he told me and how he communicated. And it's one thing that I've learned afterwards. There was a span of 4 years or so where everything he said, it was like I understood it 1 year after he said it. And so I started working with a psychiatrist, and that was the best thing I've ever done in my career. Because it's just about putting everything into perspective, and learning how to, as you say, control yourself in certain moments, how to not be a world champion in training, but be a world champion in racing and get the most out of yourself in racing. One aspect that I've been lacking completely before. So it was basically going into the 2019 season that I decided that I wanted to go all in, and I wanted to do it like anything in my power to get the most out of myself.
Yeah. It worked.
And it worked completely, but it was also a huge learning curve, and it was a very steep learning curve. And I think that was because all of a sudden I started actually paying attention to the things, like the basics, but also things happening around me. It was a crazy season in many ways, and that was when I started to take things seriously, but also when I felt like I finally proved myself that I can be there. I can be a part of the elite, and also what kept me in the sport. Because definitely, if I hadn't reached nearly what I reached that season, it would be difficult to justify quitting university and quitting a job and go all in on the triathlon.
Oh, so you had started university and started some work, and it was like, okay, off I go. Tell me that transition and that decision. Was it a difficult one? Did you have any sort of financial support? What was that like?
It was, I started on the PVAC racing team. So I had 10,000 euros a year. And of course that doesn't it's the same in dollars basically.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get you far, but at the same time, it was more than I've ever earned before from a contract. So I got some support from my parents as well, and I had some savings. And then it was just about picking the right races in terms of course, I couldn't start out with high profile races, even though I really wanted to do it. I had to ease into it a little bit. And then my biggest goal was just to qualify for the World Championships in 70.3. And I had a couple of races where I crashed. And it was not the best start to the season. And then I went to Lahti, 70.3 Lahti in Finland.
Finland, yeah.
Secured the 70.3 World Championship spot.
With a nice win there. You had a good win there. That was your first 70.3 win, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And that was a huge boost in confidence, and went to Klagenfurt the week after, because it was the center of that's where the company PVAC is located. So they are massively supporter of the Klagenfurt Ironman, and I looked at the former winners of Klagenfurt, and I saw especially one name on that list, and I thought okay, that's pretty cool with Frodo winning that one.
Yeah. So
the evening before, I still did feel it a bit from the race the week earlier, and my coach he's always been a bit, because me being a swimmer, my legs were like glass, so he was very careful me not running that much. So he was like, okay, you can put your shoes in the bag, but if you feel like the least tension or whatever, you have to pull off, or you have to pull out. It's called. You can only start running if you know that you're going to win. And I was like, mate, it's an Ironman. How on earth are you going to know that you're going to win?
Don't put your shoes on like you're going to win. Oh my God. I'm
not like a legend in the sport where I have the pedigree to make that kind of decisions on the fly.
Yeah.
So the race went on, and I got to transition 2, and I was like, I think I had a 8-minute gap or whatever, ballpark, and I did the math, and I was like, okay, I can run 4 flat for an Ironman or for a marathon. That would be 2:48. So the other guys would have to run 2:40s, and they would not do that. So in my brain,
put your shoes on.
I was winning. And I remember I did that math when I ran with the bike.
Yeah.
And racked it and ran to the tent, and I was like, I had to do the math 4 times, because as I mentioned earlier, I dropped out of uni, so math I had to be completely right. I started running, and it was just it was crazy.
That's awesome.
I don't remember anything other than running down that finisher chute, and your whole life just flashes by in small pieces from the ups, and nice times with your family, and then also all the shit you had to go through to get where you can actually win an Ironman, and then seeing all the workers from the PVAC company there with the owner with tears in his eyes, and it was so emotional, and that was pretty crazy to experience.
Just so everybody knows, I'll recap that race. I got it in front of you. You swam a 47-minute, you biked a 4:28, you ran a 2:53 for an 8:14, but you won by 11.5 minutes as well. So, it was, and you were 22. debut Ironman, 22 years of age, 8:14, win by 11 minutes, Austria Ironman, which is, world renowned, like you said, Jan Frodeno, everybody. Daniela Riff was the female that won that day. I think Marinda Carfree's won it. It's a prestigious race,
and it's a nice race. So, like, if anybody out there are looking for a race, it's a beautiful course. So I would recommend everybody to do it.
Did that change your life in terms of, okay, now I've got some stability behind me. I've got the resources.
I would say. Living in Denmark, I pay 50% taxes on all prize winnings. So I got the prize money, and immediately the tax man came and took it.
But sponsorships and things, sponsorships had to have improved. I mean, I look at your list of sponsors now; they're some of the biggest brands in the world, right?
It did like catapult it. But at the same time, I kind of stayed in the now, and I looked into a trip to Hawaii that would cost me more than a year of salary. So
yeah, I get it. But it did. What I'm trying to sort of say is for me, it sort of catapulted you into the limelight a little bit more. When I look at your companies you work with, Canyon and Red Bull and HEP, DT Swiss, Club La Santa, Ceramic Speed, and Magic 5. I want a big shout out to Magic 5, the swim goggles that you work with. I mean, a lot of these companies, did you reach out to them? Were they brands that you really wanted, or were they reaching out to you?
It's kind of both. I sat down with one of my good mates. He became my manager because I had no clue how to do the commercial side of stuff.
Yeah.
And we made a list of companies I wanted to work with, and only based out of course, quality of products, but also like you can see on all the guys I work with, there's the same kind of improvements of products, and also evolution of like Canyon, for example, with how they I could see how they worked with Jan and how they made the bikes. That was something I really wanted to be a part of, because how they treat professional athletes, how they build bikes with the athletes, and not only from an engineer standpoint. The same with Magic 5, as you mentioned. The fact that it's groundbreaking, and I've been a part of the whole development process also, from like one of the earliest goggles, being a part of that whole development of the product. And that's also something I love about being a professional athlete, the fact that I can be a huge part in how other people will experience the use of the products. And that goes for all of the brands, and that's one thing we've always. I'm very privileged to the fact that early on Canyon supported me, and that also gave me some kind of freedom in terms of I didn't have to sign something I couldn't vouch for just to get like food on the table. And that's something I'm very happy about, because I don't want to, I don't really want to just, do commercials for something I don't believe in. All of it have to be something I use on a daily basis, and it's a big part of my life. And that's a choice we've made quite early.
They're phenomenal brands, mate. And, the Magic 5 goggles to me is like the carbon shoes. It's almost like now you can have these custom fitted goggles to your face. It just feels like that one's a no-brainer.
I could imagine that you've been a huge guy in the Swedish swim goggles.
No, I wasn't. They didn't work on my eyes. I did half of my career with no goggles. Salt water, anything. I didn't even bother with it. I was like, to hell with it. But Chris McCormack was the same. Both of us didn't wear goggles for the longest time. I didn't used to even wear them much in swim training, even in chlorine pools. I don't know. In Australia, I swam. If you notice my stroke, though, it's like my head almost lifts out of the water every stroke so I can see where I'm going. But I think that's where I kind of look at the custom kind of fit goggles. I'll be like, oh, well, that'd be amazing. Mate, look, this is fantastic. I want to finish, I've kept a lot of your time. I know you probably got dinner on the table and everything else, but before I let you go, I am curious and I like to finish the show with a few questions that are specific to you. And you're only 26, but looking at your journey, the past, 8 years, 9 years, is there anything that you would go back and tell, your 18-year-old self?
There is definitely one thing or two things. Be honest to yourself and have some fun. Because that's what I've learned the bitter way. The fact that you have to be honest to yourself, and you have to be honest to the people around you. It is way more difficult than what it sounds like. Especially, or it was for me at least. And then also have fun, because you only have this life, and you only get to experience these things once. So yeah, definitely, it's a very privileged life when it comes down to it. Even though there's a lot of hard work and sacrifices, then there's not a lot of people who can travel the world and see what you get to see as a professional athlete. So it's about having some fun while doing it.
I'm truly enjoying this conversation, and I can just see the growth within you. You've got a great team around you, and it's just fantastic to hear. Okay, here's the next one. Who would you want to have dinner with? Non-family, living or dead? 3 people.
Oh, it's difficult when you say non-family.
I know. Well, that's why I take that out.
Sure, be one of them.
It's too easy. It's too easy. Of course, you're in their family, but
I think the first one that comes to mind is actually Phil Jackson. The basketball coach, because I think what he was able to do, it's easy to say athletes, but that's all. It's also kind of boring, because a lot of the time it's about controlling those kind of egos, and I think Sir Alex Ferguson and Phil Jackson is probably one of the best guys at controlling egos at those teams. And it would be just awesome to pick his brains on how on earth he did that. I only have him.
Okay,
that was the first one.
Phil Jackson, and how about Sir Alex Ferguson? You can have both of them there with you. I think that'd be a great deal. True. All right, where do you see yourself in the next 3 years, mate?
In the next 3 years, it would be easy to say multiple world champion and all that stuff, but. I think, traveling the world, doing what I love and challenging myself on a daily basis, that would be, I hope that I'm still going to be able to do that in 3 years. I'm pretty sure I am, but I work my ass off to be there. So it's just about, I love this life. So that's the main part.
I have no doubt, mate. And I think, you'll be approaching what Chris McCormack and I call the golden 30s. I think that's where even more magic will happen. I think you're just going to get better and love the sport more and more. I think you'll get to know yourself more and more, mentally and emotionally as well as physically. So I think that'll be really cool.
I look forward.
You've given so much advice in this episode. Is there anything you would, want to share with listeners on sort of what's one piece of advice that you would give them to just help them get more out of their own lives?
Yeah, I think one advice I'd give, the one that stuck to me the most, it was be curious. And that's not only that's a kind of a way of living. Actually, it's be curious about people around you, on yourself especially. Why you react in certain situations the way you do. Be curious on what it actually takes to get where you want to go, and it all the times just starts about being curious about the world.
I love that,
and that was a huge part of why I started to be serious in my sport.
That's fantastic. Great answer. Excellent answer. Hey, do you want to, I know it's been a long day, mate, super long day, but if you've listened to this show, one of the things I like to end with is rapid fire questions. Are you up for it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, real quick answers, quick questions. Here we go. One book you'd recommend?
What's it called? 10 times.
2 most used apps on your phone?
Oh, that's a bad one. WhatsApp and Instagram.
That's all right. That's probably two of the most common. The toughest race of your career so far?
Ironman World Championship, St. George.
Yeah, brutal.
That's a good word. It was brutal.
First job you ever had?
Paper boy.
Nice. I didn't know they still had papers when you were a kid. I love it. You're pre-internet. All right. Out of 10, how cool are you?
Solid 7.
I give you at least a 7. For someone who knows himself so well at 26, I'm going to shove you up to at least a 9. All right, mate. Who would you want to play a movie of your life?
Christian Bale.
Nice. Probably one of the greatest actors of all time.
He's awesome. Batman is my favorite movie ever. So
the guy knows how to get in character, doesn't he? That's awesome. Okay, which decade of music is the best?
I'm in the 80s right now.
Yes, good man. All right, favorite race you've done?
Ironman 70.3 Elsinore.
Really? Over Austria Ironman?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That was to be European champion in your backyard. That was kind of special.
Okay, fair enough. I know you've won some big ones, mate. Jeez. we didn't even get to cover all your big wins, by the way. Where's somewhere in the world you haven't been that you'd like to go?
Australia, no doubt.
Oh, come on, buddy. Let's get you down there.
I'm ready.
All right, good man. And greatest movie of all time?
The Dark Knight.
I love it. That's great. All right, mate. Well, this has been absolutely brilliant. What do you got next? What's coming up? What events and things you got coming?
So the first part of the season is, that's kind of Ibiza and Challenge Roth. That's on the main goal there.
Yeah.
And then afterwards is it is basically just high profile races from here. PGO series and Nice as well.
Best of luck to you. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Been really enjoying watching you progress over the years. It's been great to watch the Danes take on the Norwegians. You know, we have these little rivalries, and it's been fun to watch you guys elevate the sport. And it's not just physically. I feel like, you know, I've had a couple of you on the show now, and I'm so blown away by the way you all approach what you do and the professionalism in the way that you carry yourselves. And it's just so exciting to see where the sport's come to, from where I was to where it is now. And it's just really great, mate. And I truly appreciate you coming on and just sharing your journey and all your knowledge, mate. It's been fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Greg. It was a huge honor being on your pod. It's you're a legend yourself. So I'm still kind of I'm sitting here sweating a bit, being nervous about being on the pod, so that's a good sign.
Not at all, mate. It's been a huge honor of mine. So, mate, stay on the line. I truly appreciate you. For everybody else, you can find all the show notes and timestamps at bennettendurance.com/media.
Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Patreon page, or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.